The next pharaoh we're looking at is Akhenaten. And Akhenaten was very different than other pharaohs. He changed the art from being this very stylized art that we saw for, thousands of years to a more naturalistic looking art. He changed the religion from polytheism, meaning you're worshiping many gods, to monotheism, worshiping one God, the sun god. He changed where the capital was. He did all of these things that were very revolutionary during his reign. And if you look at him, he looks a little strange in his depiction here. We see that he has kind of wider hips and a narrower waist, making him maybe look a little more feminine, a very elongated face. And there are a couple of theories of why he chose to show himself this way. One is he might have been bisexual. That is definitely a theory that's out there. And so he chose to show himself both kind of like the male female version of himself. Another theory is that we do have at this time period this idea that the bloodline has to stay pure. So you have people that are marrying that are very closely genetically related. So you'll have like, a stepbrother and a stepsister marrying, or maybe even a sister, a brother, sister. Things that we would say are very taboo in our society. And they're taboo because we know that if you marry your brother and you have a child with him, there is a good chance that that child could have genetic problems, deformities. And so it could be that, like, these people are just starting to look strange because they were so interbred to keep this bloodline straight. And or pure. And this happens not only in ancient Egypt, it happens in, the England and elsewhere around the world. This has happened multiple places before people realized that this is genetically causes problems. So we have him with this ginormous crown with a cobra on it, very long beard, and he has his arms crossed like this, although one part of this arm is missing. And then he has, you see one here, he would have had another one. These are sickles. They're used to cut wheat or to cut reeds, like papyrus reeds or something. You would hold it, and then it's a blade that, like, you swing it like this and it cuts it. So it has a reference to power and to him being Pharaoh. So he was married to his half sister, who happened to be Nefertiti, who is said to be one of the most beautiful women of the ancient world. And if she in fact looked like this, I think we could all say she was gorgeous. She would have been a runway model, or pretty enough to be a runway model. This is a piece of stone, limestone that's carved, and then it had plaster put on it. So we have a lot of really fine details that were able to be put into this because of that plaster, like the little, bit of space here, dimple kind of thing here at the mouth and the line of the neck and stuff. That is because of the plaster on top of it. And then it's painted. It's a bust. It's only from like this part of her body upward. It's called a bust. And it was one that the artist did that then he was going to copy multiple times. So instead of a photograph, he did this. And so that is why she only has one eye completed. He didn't really need to complete the other eye. He knew what it looked like. She has this very regal crown on. And then if you look, the whole face comes down and it's like a triangle. So we can follow the line, the cursor thing here doesn't work. Follow the line of this into the neck. And she has a very long neck, which makes her look, again, very regal and very beautiful. She has lots of jewelry on. She's a gorgeous woman. So now the next pharaoh that takes over was of Akhenaten, and one of his other wives, and that is the Pharaoh King Tut. And we know King Tut, or Tutankhamun, the best probably of all the pharaohs, for the simple reason that his tomb was not disturbed for thousands, actually, for thousands of years. And then it was found, in contemporary time, and they opened up this tomb and they're like, oh my God, look at all this gold and everything. And it was really amazing. And a lot of this we have in the British Museum because the archaeological dig that was going on and the archaeologists who found this were British. King Tut did not live very long. He died like as a late teenager, in his early 20s in that time frame. And then he was not like a great ruler or anything. That's not why we know him. We know him because we found his tomb and it hadn't been raided. He had a lot of problems that we were able to figure out from looking at his mummified body. It could be that because he was in this line that was intermarrying so much that he could have had genetic deformities to begin with. There's also a theory that he had bone cancer in his legs. And then another theory that he was in a chariot accident and broke his legs and they weren't set correctly. Or maybe it was all of them. Who knows? We really are not sure. But he had problems with his legs and he died early. Now look at this. This is in length here. This is 6 feet 7/8 inches long, and it's made out of gold, and it weighs nearly 243 pounds. So now you understand why I'm saying like they would bury their pharaohs with great wealth, and why then people wanted to break into the tombs and steal the precious metal and gold, such as gold and jewelry and stuff. Unfortunately, a lot of these just get lost because something like this, when it was found, let's say, 3,000 years ago or something, what they would do is they would just melt it down and then sell it for the cost of the gold. So it gets lost, unfortunately. This is the funerary mask of Tutankhamun, or King Tut. And this is 24 pounds of gold. So even that is worth a ton of money nowadays. And then it has semi-precious stones in it. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful piece of art. So we have a lot of the stuff for King Tut we have in Cairo at that museum. And then we have a decent amount at the British Museum as well in London. This is the last image I'm going to show you from the ancient Egyptian part of this. And this is called the Book of the Dead. So when you died, it was believed that you would come up for judgment and you would have a series of tests that you had to pass. If you passed these tests, you were allowed to enter the afterlife, have eternal life. If you failed these tests, that's it. You're done. They don't have like purgatory or hell or something like that. You're finished. In the very beginning, when I started talking about the ancient Egyptians, I said in the beginning, it was only like the pharaohs really that got to try to go to the afterworld or the afterlife. As we move through time, it gets to be like the priests get to try, the scribes get to try, and then people that had money get to try. So it becomes a greater group of people that attempt to go to the afterlife. This is actually Hunefer, and Hunefer was a scribe. So Hunefer here is shown at judgment, and he's the one dressed in white. So he is here, and he is with the God here who is going to bring him to judgment. And then we have this container, and this side has a feather. And this container would have had his heart, and it was weighed out against a feather. And if it balanced out, it meant that you had led a moral life. If it was unbalanced, then you hadn't led a moral life, and then this god here with the crocodile head, it would eat your heart, and that was it. Um, um, Conifer is shown once again here, and here this is Horus again, always with the falcon head, and he brings the scribe here to Osiris to be judged, and behind Osiris are his wives, and here are his children, indicating the directions north, south, east, and west. Horus is shown here again with the eye and the feather. And then here is the scribe once again in all these questions that he has to answer, all these tests and everything. And we have written hieroglyphics as well. We also have Osiris here is elevated off the ground, and there's this white platform, which may be alluding to the white salt that they would stuff inside the body to dry it out. I also have here a Smart History video if you want to watch more about this. Do that. And then that brings us to the Kushites. So I'm going to stop this and then make another video as we move away from the Egyptians to the Kushites.